Welcome to the Tower Update. So today, a quick story of origin. So where did Wizard Academy come from? That question gets asked a lot. And the answer is kind of a journey. In 1994, Roy H. Williams, the founder of the school, began writing a blog post, essentially, in a newsletter called the Monday Morning Memo. It took on many forms throughout the years. It was faxed, it was mailed, it was now emailed, and essentially became a blog post for all practical purposes. In 1998, Ray Bard of Bard Publishing reached out to Roy, and they collaborated and pulled together hundreds of those posts. And that eventually became the first Wizard of Ads book that then became the Wizard of Ads trilogy, and they became New York Times bestsellers. Because of that success, Roy started spending a lot of time on the road. And if you know anything about Roy, you know that that's one thing he absolutely hates to do. He would much rather be at home all the time. And so it was kind of just draining him. And so at one point, Penny looked at him and said, "You know what, Roy? You need to make them come to you instead of you traveling to go to them." And on the back of that, they started holding their first classes in a conference room in their small office building in Buda, Texas. In about 2004, Penny decided we need to have a property where we can actually build something. And she found the property that we are still on today. And they managed to purchase all the acreage that the academy and the for-profit buildings are, and a few lots along the hill as well. At that point, Marley Porter shows up in the story. Now, Marley, working with Roy and Penny, designed every single building on this campus. So when you see all the intricate, interesting architecture in the buildings, that's often the hand of Marley or the hand of Marley and Penny. And the whole campus was built by Daniel and Patty Denny and a handful of helpers. So as things progressed, if you'll remember, we built the chapel first, and then they sort of worked out of what was essentially a little shed office on the property. And then they knocked down a barn and rebuilt Tuscan Hall in its place, and they started holding classes over there. Roy's only job during this time was to come up with the money to actually build things. As Roy said, we've never been in debt, we've never borrowed money, and we don't owe anybody. We exist entirely off of tuitions and donations, and that's because we've only built as money came in. And so the rule was, you know what, if the money's coming in, work on the tower. If there's no money today, go build a rock wall. And that's how the campus just sort of came together, one piece at a time. Now, people often ask Roy, or ask us, what does it feel like to have this grand vision come together? And we find that a little amusing, because honestly, almost everything on this property was only the shadow of an idea and came into existence in steps and directions and choices along the way. So something would be built, and then someone would say, you know what we need? And then a next thing would happen. And then someone would say, we know what we need is, and then that next thing would grow. And that's the kind of thing that you can only do if every decision you make is according to a consistent culture and a consistent idea of things that matter, right? So if you're always just kind of trapped into whatever's cool right now, then you end up with all these hodgepodge steps. But if the culture and the values are strong and very clearly defined, then anytime it comes to make a decision about the next thing, it will almost always look like it was part of the grand plan, because it's such a natural extension of the culture and the values of the community or of the company. We're now reaching the time when we're moving into bringing on new board of directors members and new leadership, and it's really the second generation of Wizard Academy is starting to step in and take the first steps to growing into the future. And Roy's been asked a lot about that as well. And the most recent thing I heard him say was, it reminds me of a quote from Garrison Keillor. "One day, a date that God only knows, I will perish from the earth and no longer be present for roll call. My mail will be returned, my library card canceled. Some other family will occupy this house, this very porch, and not be aware that I ever existed. And if you told them, they wouldn't particularly care. Oh well, what can you do? I hope they appreciate the work I did on the lawn." Until tomorrow, may your crazy stay this side of legal, and may you return before we have time to miss you. Cheers.